Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Have to Keep Going weekly video games podcast here on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, back with another episode. This is episode number 397 for Sunday, the 27th of July, 2025, in our year of gaming, 2025. Here with me, as always, I have one of my stalwart partners in crime, Mr. DBQ Hams. How you doing, DBQ?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here. We got plenty to talk about. Tao's not here, but we will. This means we can focus on sports games and less on Nintendo today. So
that is kind of true. Not entirely true, but kind of true. We will get into the details of that later. So without much further ado, let's get to it. Tonight, starting with segment one, our main gamer experience stories for this past week. DBQ, you are at the top of the queue with what you have been playing.
yeah, so one of the games that came out this week is Clutchtime. It's a deck builder roguelike, kind of in the vein of Slay the Spire, somewhere kind of in the cross between Slay the Spire and Balatro in terms of some of the multipliers, but definitely it's basketball. And I played the demo of this back on one of the Steam Next Fest, and is from Bigosaur is the development team. Bigosaur is out of Serbia, actually. This is they've done a couple other stuff, but it's all kind of small indie stuff, kind of flash game like graphics. This is not graphically intensive. This is very much just static images of silhouettes on cards, but it works really well. So if you've played Slay the Spire or any other type of deck builder where you've got attacks and you've got defense, which gives shields for the enemy's attack, basically you are two teams in basketball, and it is your defense is your shields are your defense, whether that's a block or a foul or a steal. Steals give you an extra card, which is a fast break, which means if you pull that, your next shot is worth 0 stamina. So traditional kind of stamina in terms of deck builder turns plays out here as well, that you get stamina, and like a 3-point shot costs 3 stamina. A layup or a 2-point is 2 stamina. You can get cards that reduce that stamina. You can get cards that give you more stamina, like a rebound gives you more stamina, and you draw a card. Basically, you're still playing offense. There are certain cards that kind of in the Balatro style start to kind of break the mechanics or the math of it, where you can get cards that give you as much stamina as you have in your draw pile. In one run, I pulled that card, and that meant that suddenly I went from 3 to 4 stamina at a turn to, for one turn, I had 16 stamina. And what did a lot, I made a 20 point plus 20 points in a turn. So, but those cards, as you build your deck, as you progress, as you continue to play, you unlock further cards and you can make your deck, but you kind of start with a base set of cards. You can, as you go through each quarter, every card you play is 15 seconds off the clock. So it starts as 12-minute quarters and you move through back and forth. And so as you get down to the end of a quarter, being very aware of how much time is left, that if you're going to do a pass to set up a shot, which reduces the price of a shot. If I found myself the first couple of times playing it not necessarily paying attention to that, and running out. The clock ran out on me while I was trying to set up a 3-pointer. But your defensive cards carry over into not only from turn to turn, or from one turn until they're kind of used as a defense, but also they don't get flushed away. There we go. Yep, they don't get flushed away at the end of a quarter either. So one of the things that it does is, a block, you can just like in Slay the Spire, where you can see what your opponent has for defense. So if you know that your opponent has a block or a foul on, which is going to stop your shot, I often will kind of do a 2-point shot to know that it's going to get blocked, so that my 3-point shot goes in. Depending on how much stamina I have and things like that. One of the things, a block is a pretty clean. It kind of nullifies the shot, but a foul has a random element to it that it can be can draw a free throw. So if you take a foul, you get 5 fouls per game, just rather than per half. But if you're in bonus time, then anytime you foul or the defense fouls you, you get free throws as well. So the first free throw is 0 points. The next free throw is 1 point in terms of stamina to play. So it's nothing fancy to look at, but I sank 4 hours into it over the last couple of days. It is definitely one of those like one more turn aspect. Played it on PC. It also runs great on Steam Deck. It has touchscreen support. So as I was playing it, I'm like, oh, Steam Deck is kind of heavy to sit there and play touchscreen on. But looking at it, it does. The demo has been released on iOS in some countries. The full game is out on Android in some countries, so it's definitely coming to mobile devices as well. It is $15, $16 or so, but it's one of those where if you kind of have a sense of basketball, or even just the back and forth, the cards are very explanatory in terms of what they do. So it's something where it's not as it can be just as nail biting as playing 2K in terms of setting up and coming down. Sometimes, like, I had one great run where I made it through and won the tournament because I had unlocked a certain set of cards that were, but also I often find myself, especially early on, if you beat the tournament on one difficulty, it opens up the next difficulty. And so by the time even in the second difficulty, I am fighting for every basket and playing ahead in terms of defense. So it's nothing fancy, but it certainly is enjoyable as a deck builder, roguelike sports game kind of crossbreed.
So, do you have any idea? It looks like any idea if this was coded in Unity? If is the engine behind it?
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, given the Eastern European aspect of the developer. It certainly, again, looking at it, it seems very possible to be in Unity.
It's kind of interesting that it comes out of Eastern Europe for a very American sport. Of course, I mean, there are obviously leagues over there, but and then so it looks like you can name your own team. And I didn't catch if you mentioned, are you playing this like in a league online with friends?
No, I don't know if there's league aspect. It's at this point it looks mainly single player. You can choose which country you want to play in, and then if you're playing in America, you get all your NBA teams. You can unlock additional teams. You can play in South America, you can play in Europe, you can play in Asia. So, I mean, given that basketball has leagues across the world, it definitely translates in that way. I haven't necessarily played in other countries to see and to kind of run a comparison if it maps that your European league matches up with the European league in real life.
And you're playing, and so you're saying you could play in multiple leagues, but then I saw where you could also like name custom teams. So can you both like create teams in leagues that you're playing in, and then can you also just like complete just a custom league with completely like new names for
I
teams
think
of your own?
you can rename the individual teams that are there, and then I think you can probably create a custom league and just. I think all of those aspects of custom leagues and even the names themselves, at this point, I haven't seen that team by team gives a lot of difference. Yeah, it makes sense that certain teams, like as I've been playing through the tournament, certain teams will have different cards, but there's no there's no real transparency in terms of like playing as Golden State gives you more 3-point cards or something like that, right? Like to have them modeled after even if they're not modeled after real NBA teams, but having them have kind of unique specialties, which seems possible.
Okay, very cool. And any aspects of the I mean, what are your feelings about the UI? Like, is the UI pretty? It seemed, I don't want to call it basic. I mean, I'm trying to frame it this right, Ray. So
utilitarian, right?
yeah. I mean, but then you mentioned that it can also bring you to the edge of nail biting, just like in a game of NBA 2K can. So, like, is the UI laid out in a way that it allows you to get at like the complexities of the game? And like, so what is the game that we play on iOS that retro football?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So retro bowl, there's a little bit of complexity that it lets you get to, but not a whole ton, right? In terms of like depth. So are you able to get at that within this UI, or are there really complex systems like just kind of buried beneath the covers and you never really can like see those and interact with them?
I think in some ways, because it's a deck builder game, the complex systems really play out in the cards you have and the combos that you can make in your cards. And the text on the cards is very clear. It is, there's the randomness of it. Like you don't know what you're going to pull every turn. Like each turn, your deck files, you discard your deck and, it cycles back in. If you haven't played that card, it goes back into your draw pile and you pull the next 6 cards for the next turn. So I think like the first couple games I played, it took me, it was I think the clarity of the mechanics are there, but it takes you a little while. It took me a little while to know how to start stringing those together, right? That because I wasn't sure what was all. I didn't spend a lot of time looking through the deck before I started playing. Like if I would have looked through the deck in my hand to know like, oh, if I pull this card, it's going to pull that other card, or they combo together. Like I can, pass and steal and get a fast break. And so after playing a couple rounds, those cards, like as I was drawing them, I had a better sense of like, okay, well, I don't have a good card that pairs. And I don't have a good card that pairs with this card right now. So I'm not going to play it. And I'm going to throw it back into my draw pile so that the next time it comes up, hopefully I have a good combo with it so that I can play it. So I think that there's that kind of complexity in the mechanics, but it also is not. Sometimes deck builders can be so text heavy in their cards and so many layers in like this does this, and if it does this with these types of cards with this element, like the nice thing about this is it's very pared back in that way, the same way that Balatro was very straightforward to kind of jump into. That I think Clutchtime, if you have a general sense of basketball, it fits perfectly. Even if you don't have a great sense of basketball and you have a sense of how deck builders traditionally play, it doesn't take long to see the parallels here. So yeah, I think as Nate was saying, deck builders can get super complicated. Yeah, and this is one of the reasons I'm enjoying this is that it's not. It can get complex, but that complexity is based on how you chain things together, not necessarily trying to just grok and get your mind around the systems of the game itself.
So I do want to give a shout out to Soil Tech, Nerds and Other Legends, who are friends of the show from the Gaming Circle podcast Discord. as well as Nate in the chat, who is a long-standing friend of the show. One other question on this game, DBQ. How does this compare to the dopamine hit, the just one more turn, the overall adhesiveness of Marvel Snap for you?
Oh, I don't know that I can answer that yet until it gets on my phone. I think Marvel Snap is the downside of this is that it's probably a 20-minute game to get through, where Marvel Snap is 5-7 minutes for a battle. I think at some point that if this was, it'll be interesting as I continue to play this out to see how the computer is, where Marvel Snap is simply player versus player. So I'm finding the dopamine hit pretty similar in terms of I feeling like, oh, just if I just get one different pull, but the it's not nearly as tight of a loop as Marvel Snap, or even I think even Hearthstone back in the day. That it's definitely more in that roguelike where it's got a little more length to each game.
Very cool. Very cool. Moving on to story number 2, not really story, but item number 2 in segment 1. The game that I've been playing most recently has been EA Sports College Football 26 on the PlayStation 5 Pro, and I probably won't talk about it too long because it's been a soul grinding past week playing playing the game. It for me as far as my like gamer dynamic, right, and time management and schedule, it's kind of starting a bit to occupy the place that a lot of the gas games were. Because I think I almost hesitate to say this at risk. I think I've fallen off of the gas wagon for a period of time. I'm not I'm not having that yet. The last time I played Call of Duty when it was double XP weekend, I didn't get the normal thing, because I had kind of made the decision beforehand, before that double XP weekend, that I was like, I'm going to start playing more story stuff. It's been 6 years, right, really in the gas world. And so when I dipped in for that double XP weekend, what did not happen, which normally does, I did not get hit with the, oh, it's double XP weekend, everything's off the table. I'm playing Call of Duty for the entire weekend. But college football was kind of like falling into that crevice for me. Um, what's probably causing me to fall off of that is that it has been a soul grinding week trying to tweak sliders to get it to the balanced football game that I'm looking for. And the problem is that is, for me, that's never a matter of skill. It's always a matter of what team am I playing, what is their overall rating, and how do I, in a dynasty mode, how do I get that to kind of true up to the teams, right, that are in my conference. And so I've run into several problems, and I'm playing the Liberty Flames, which is a Conference USA school, small school here in Virginia. Um, and there's several problems. First of all, I don't know. I didn't look thoroughly at my schedule before I started the season, but great Scott, it seems like nearly every game is an away game. I'm like, geez, like I don't remember being at home. Like the uniforms are all red, and I'm like, I don't remember playing a game in the all red uniforms. And I was playing one just before um the podcast. So there's that. 2 is the playbook. Uh and that playbook, which I need to mess with, like particularly during times when the game clock, right, was already kind of put me in a clock management situation. I like go to the playbook page. I'm looking for a pass play, and I'm like, great Scott, man! Like there's nothing here but RPO option plays and play action. And I'm like, there's no. It seems like there's no just straight up like unless I go to the actual Hail Mary tab, like it seems like this team in their playbook and their offensive playbook has like no just straight up like shotgun formation. And everything has motion. So I'm like, like it's happened like not a half dozen, but like 3 or 4 times in a game that I'll get a delay of game penalty just because like the plays aren't there, and I'm like, what is going on? And so I started the season with a different team's playbook, and then because I felt like I was having that problem, I switched it back to the default team playbook, and I'm like, this is like the same thing. Like, what's going on? So, it's gotten me to that point where I'm like, do I need to really deep dive and spend more time? But I'm also at the point where I'm like, I don't want to keep sinking time into this. I've also, in that tweaking of sliders and trying to get the right game balance, I've gone, so many times I've gone into a team, it's a 74 rating team, and I'm playing 64, 67, 68 rating teams. I'm like, and there's whole quarters, whole halves of a game that I'm like, I can't complete a pass. The run, like nothing's working, and I'm like, okay, like at this point where I have the slider set, this should not be the case. Like, what is going on? I will say one gameplay mechanic, and again, I'm not a like great Madden player or college football player. I will say one thing that I've learned in kind of the way the system is set up, and I don't know if it's this year or maybe it was this way last year. I want to say it's more sensitive this year, is your running back cannot start running downhill before you hit the hole. Like if you if you're looking for a seam, I've learned now like it works way better with this year's mechanics if you don't hit like the sprint button until you're passing through the crease. If you hit the sprint button as you're starting to approach the crease, it just seems like the defensive line just has octopus tentacles and they just
It
reach out, and
blocks
I'm
it
like,
like crazy. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, what are you what? But if you hit that sprint, like as you hit the hole, then you'll take off and accelerate, and those guys don't seem to capture you. So it just seems like the defensive linemen are very sticky on the line as you're passing through if you've already hit that sprint button. So
I think it's hard. I mean, last year it was hard to run as well. But that aspect of releasing when you hit sprint is, I've seen that in Madden as well, where you definitely like in the backfield you hit sprint because the hole is there and you're trying to get through it, and they just block shit like crazy. Yeah, last year when I played it a lot, I played it for probably 10 months straight, but I was always playing with sliders with pass accuracy up a little bit, receiving up a little bit, because I felt like it wasn't, things that should have been completed were just bouncing off people's hands. And so definitely playing with those sliders, I think that's a common thing in Madden and in NCAA here, is that there are a variety of different sliders out there if you look for certain types, but always find like I'm toying with the sliders to make the game more enjoyable for me. It doesn't have to stay at the 50-50. There were times in Madden where I would turn sliders on interceptions way down because people were just jumping out of everywhere to grab them. Are you playing, what passing scheme are you playing? Because I play on classic, where it's simply just the face buttons, and you can lead a little bit with the stick. Are you playing with that additional meter, like the perfect passing where you hold it down?
no, yeah, I'm definitely playing with classic. And as you talk through this, in years past, we have spent a ton of time on this show talking about MLB the Show, and I realize, great Scott, how has Madden been around for like 30 years and it doesn't have like dynamic difficulty scaling? I mean, that's, I'm realizing like, that's really what it would benefit from. Like if it played like MLB the Show, it would be a heck of a lot easier. And like one of the things that you mentioned, as you talk about tweaking sliders, like one of the things that's super frustrating is like I've got a tight end who's like very reliable, and so like some games it's like, you don't go to him a lot, but when you do go to him, like he's magic, right? But then I'll have games where he like doesn't catch a thing, and so it's I'll be running the ball, I'll hit some short plays, um, I'll need to go long, and it's like it'll be an entire game of the receivers catching the ball and then dropping it right by the time they come down, and I'm like, okay, it shouldn't be impossible for this quarterback to complete like a long pass. Like this is so yeah. so I'm definitely just in a rut where it feels like, in a span of 40 points, right, of moving sliders, it feels like they are just dull and insensitive as all get out, and like there seems to be like no change, right, in the gameplay. So I don't know. I may just put it down for a while before I go back to it. We'll see. Pass leading, I feel like actually works pretty effectively. I can use the left stick to put the ball out in front of the receiver, and let them run to it, or just get it up over the DB so it's at least out of danger. If I've got like the taller receiver, I can put it a little behind them, and you can see them actually slow, right, and jump and catch the ball. So there are some aspects of the game, that are improved, that are more sensitive and that are working well. And then there's other aspects that I'm just like getting totally frustrated. But
yeah, I know they keep patching it to try to continue some balance issues and some other pieces in terms of gameplay and back end stuff within the dynasty mode. I think as you were talking about playbooks, I know from in 25, like I tried out a variety of different playbooks, like went online, looked at what people were saying were like the best playbooks or playbooks that had good money plays in them, and a bunch of them were the ones that you're describing, right? Like nothing but options, RPOs, and I find it really hard to run that offense because I am used to, and also I think the difficulty traditionally has been that as you scale up the difficulty, passing is still possible, but running becomes more and more difficult. Um, and so having something that is a run heavy offense or an RPO heavy offense, it is exactly what you were saying of like, I too often was finding myself stuck in third and long and needing something more than a quick pass. So, and especially early on in a dynasty, you don't have an offensive line that can hold a block long enough to set something up either.
yeah, very true. Very true. All right, let's go ahead and go on to segment 2 and get into our main news headlines. I'll pick up just one comment from the chat from nerds. There were only a few sports games that ever really resonated with me: NFL 2K Virtual Tennis and NFL Blitz. Not sure why, probably because of Dreamcast. And NFL 2K was just an amazing game. You could sit couch co-op with your friends and be all on the same team and have everybody playing different positions. So you could be the quarterback and have a buddy who was a tight end, and have somebody else playing wide receiver or running back. I had two friends of mine when we were in training and had lots of downtime to play NFL 2K. It was the three of us on the couch playing the games like that. Oh yeah, the VMU play selection. Yeah, it was cool. So you could hide your play from your opponent.
That's right. Dreamcast was good for that VMU.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into the news. At DBQ, you have the first news story.
Sure. The first news story was picked up a variety of places. I pulled it from GameMinistry.biz. The article is from Vic Hood. Around 1047, Games announced that Splitgate 2 is going back into beta. And so this is, wait, am I grabbing the right news story? Yeah, grabbing the right news story. Okay.
Oh, no, you're right. No, I'm wrong.
You grab that's okay.
Yes,
for the audio listener, you don't have any idea that Game Logic put up the wrong news story on the screen. But so while he grabs the right one, I'll talk about Splitgate 2. So Nicholas Bagman, who had some controversy and fluffer feedback around him after the Summer Game Fest, and both in terms of his showing up on stage, but then also it happened to correspond with Splitgate 2 launching some cosmetic packs that were $99.99. And so he states here, we heard your feedback. We agree with you. We had ambitious goals for Splitgate 2 and our excitement to share it with you, but we bit off more than we can chew. In part, I think, it is, so they're going back to beta, basically doing some retweaking here, reworking from the ground up adding more portals, simplifying the monetization, and refocusing on classic game modes. So this comes one of the things that the Splitgate studio did during the kind of launch of Splitgate 2 is that they also shut off the servers for Splitgate 1. And so shutting down the servers for Splitgate 1 and not necessarily offering up the same modes that the community was looking for in Splitgate 2 gave them some additional kind of negative feedback from the community. So, and this comes, at the same time that they're doing this rework, they've also announced that they're laying off undisclosed number. Well, they did that back in June, so they laid off some people from their studio as well. So yeah, I think that it is the world of early access and constant kind of, is it out, is it not out? I think the fact that it was kind of fully launched, but pulling it back into beta, not quite. It's not like they're pulling it from the store. They're just kind of pulling the classification around it. So we'll see what this means for the game when it launches again, and if it gets kind of the same, if it suffers kind of a bump or doesn't see as big of a bump when it comes back out of beta this next time.
Okay, very cool. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an unfortunate toe stub, right? The whole bravado shown at Summer Game Fest, right? And then, then you have this, right? It just kind of leaves a lot of egg on your face. Um, maybe encourages maybe more slightly more humble presence being shown on stage the next time around, because of course, right, the shade that was thrown was, that he was tired of playing Call of Duty. And, as I always mention, since we've been, since before the acquisition went down and then the acquisition now, and now that Call of Duty is in Game Pass, again, you have this behemoth on the market that consumes, hundreds of millions of players, and you're on a competitive landscape where your genre and what you're trying to do is driving straight at that Mack truck. When you also have Apex Legends and Fortnite and yada yada yada, it just, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. So
yeah, I'm guessing they must have seen a significant drop off of player retention and monetization in order to make this call to pull it back into beta, rather than just kind of talk about a roadmap, right? Like if you're seeing some dip in players, usually you'd see an announcement about, we've heard your feedback, here's a roadmap coming, a reason to keep players engaged. But to pull it back like this, it definitely feels like a little more significant.
Yep. All right, moving on to the second news story in the rundown. This news story over on Kit Guru by Matthew Wilson. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered surpasses 9 million players. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered released in April, and in the 3 months since, the game has garnered over 9 million players, up from 4 million at the end of April. Fans all around the world have been jumping back into the game to re-experience Imperial City, and others who grew up with Skyrim are experiencing the events of Oblivion for the first time. Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered has been a top-selling game on Steam as well as Xbox and PS5 consoles since its release. The sales boost will have arrived over the past few weeks, as the game had been discounted across PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. So it's been about 3 months since its launch. Was the amount of time that it has taken to achieve this milestone. A reminder that it was also a surprise launch that kind of came out of nowhere on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. When I say that from an official announcement perspective. There were tons of rumors swirling around it that was a thing that was going to happen. Caught everyone off guard that it happened the same week that Expedition 33 launched. Bethesda shared the milestone in a lighthearted social media post. And a reminder that the number reflects total players, not actual total sales, because of its availability on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. And so I am not absolutely certain, but because day and date exists now at the top tier, I don't think that this game is available, or at least it didn't at launch, wasn't available in Xbox in Game Pass console, you would have had to have been at the Ultimate tier. It may have since migrated to the console tier. I think it is available in PC Game Pass. I'll have to double check.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think PC Game Pass was one of those where, it at the standard PC Game Pass level, you were still getting things day and date.
Yeah, weird. So despite the fact that the number reflects people in Game Pass, the game has sold very well, outperforming the original Oblivion and becoming April's best-selling game in the U.S. With continued strong performance into June. So if you remember back to the MPD charts for April, I'm pretty sure Oblivion was at or near the top of the list. Bethesda has released several updates addressing bugs and performance issues. So I haven't played the game myself. I talked to friend of the show and fellow content creator Slow-Mo Backslap. He mentioned that the game did have performance issues when he played it on PC with frame rate stuttering, and he hasn't gone back to it since the patches have been released. So I don't know whether or not they've all been resolved. Listening to Digital Foundry, that is there, but it kind of presents itself in kind of weird scenarios because it's this weird thing of like it's the creation engine code right with the like in an Unreal Engine wrapper. So it just creates kind of a weird code execution situation. Um, they did fix a Dark Brotherhood quest error. So in addition to the performance issues, there apparently were some broken side missions. This is a title that was actually put together by Virtuous, which I think we talked about last week.
Some layoffs. Yep.
That laid off 270 employees due to internal restructuring. I think at the time that we talked about that story, we mentioned that that the Oblivion remaster team was not impacted, but in fact, they did get hit by about 10 employees, so not a huge schwack, but they were impacted. It seems like kind of one of those moves where every studio or every team had to give up their pound of flesh. Um, that all being said, Virtuous continues to be healthy as far as I know. That total was about 7% of their workforce. They were about a 4,200, 4,250 member company. And they've worked on obviously Oblivion Remastered, but also before that worked on Dark Souls Remastered, Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition, as well as Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, Cyberpunk 2077, Mortal Kombat, and some other titles. So,
I think as we're
hopefully,
talking about Oblivion, I just want to also acknowledge the loss of the death of Elder Scrolls creator Julian Lefay, who died at 59 of cancer. He was kind of the spearheaded both Arena and Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall.
all right, DBQ, you are back on the mic.
I am. So this is a quick follow-up from one of our news stories last week where we talked about Steam delisting a number of not safe for work, whether, games, however you want to describe that, in terms of pulling them at pressure from credit card providers or credit card processors. And so itch.io announced this week the exact same thing, that they are de-indexing not safe for work games. The article this time that Game Logic has up in front of us is coming from GameIndustry.biz. But again, basically following the same aspect of, as we talked about last week with Steam, very much a follow-up on payment processors' pressure of in terms of whether it's credit cards or PayPal. This article specifically, again from Vic Hood, talks about Collective Shout, which is an online organization that started a campaign against Steam and itch.io that targeted the CEOs of PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, Discover, the Japan Credit Bureau, in terms of ceasing processing payments on gaming platforms. The quote from Collective Shout, gaming platforms which host rape, incest, or child sexual abuse themed games, unquote. So mainly I pulled this because we spent some time talking about this last week, and then to see kind of the knock-on effect on itch. We'll see if it hits other places like the Epic Game Store, as well. But I think the Epic Game Store by itself is not nearly as much of a free-for-all as Steam and itch are.
So I think one thing that's important to mention, and I will admit that as I say this, I'm on kind of shaky ground because I'm not absolutely certain, but I feel pretty well assured that these games have not been removed from itch.io. And I think I should have maybe said that on Steam. They have been de-indexed, which is a database term, which just means if they aren't listed in a manifest, right? So you're not going to go to a page.
You're not going to stumble across them in the top sellers. You have to
right
directly.
Yeah, you have to conduct an actual active search, right, to find them. And so now what the article did say is that they've kind of pulled them out of public visibility. So for people who are familiar with YouTube, what I'm saying is it's similar to when you post a video and you don't make it private, but you make it unlisted. The video's there, and if somebody searches for it, they will find it and be able to play it, but it doesn't present in your manifest right on your page. But now what the article does say is that they're conducting an internal audit, and once that audit is complete, that there will be some games that are actually taken off of the store. And I don't know if the de-indexing will be rescinded. So I thought this was particularly interesting because I will readily admit that Innate made a comment in the chat last week, and he basically said, look, I hope, when we talked about the Steam story, and he was like, well, I hope, there's some pushback, or there's some, digging in of heels, or there's something that kind of abates this, I'll call it an offensive at this point, this offensive dynamic, right, on the gaming industry, because he mentioned when we've seen this before, then storefronts tend to go after other stuff, or it tends to spill over to storefronts. And I will readily admit, when I saw that comment, I was like, no, I'm not worried about that. And then here we are, right? And this is a news story that I read this week as well. Here we are with yet another storefront being impacted. And I readily expect that we'll see the same story for the Xbox store and Epic Games and the PlayStation store, etc. Of course, Nintendo should fly under the wire about for this, and I think actually the App Store, Apple's App Store, will probably also not get schwacked by this. It'll be curious if they go after Netflix, because we've talked recently in the past few weeks about games on Netflix, and I noticed this weekend, going into my Netflix queue, I think on mobile, there were games at the top of the queue, and one of them was kind of not safe for work, or it just at least had like suggestive content that, I'm not worried about that for me. But now I'm like, okay, one of my oldest kid has Netflix enabled on her device, and I'm like, I probably need to check, what that looks like when she signs into her profile, to make sure that's not in her windshield. So. All right, DBQ, you are also.
Yeah, we'll just move on to the next story. So this one, it could be a quick hit, or it could be a soapbox moment. But so this is the news story. This one I pulled from Video Games Chronicle, posted by Andy Robertson. Last month in June, Xbox announced that they were moving some of their first-party games, their premier titles, up to $80, and Outer Worlds 2 was going to be the first one of those. And now this week, they announced that they have reversed plans to do that. That Outer Worlds 2 will be back at the $70 price point, and on the storefronts, it's already back in that. The quote from an Xbox here is, "We're focused on bringing players incredible worlds to explore, keeping our full priced holiday releases, including the Outer Worlds, in line with current market conditions." So basically, I think this announcement from Xbox came shortly after the price announcements around Nintendo and Mario Kart World. And that aspect, in terms of the price bump to $80 for Mirror Cart World, and we anticipated, and we talked about it on this show, that we anticipated this being like the first crack in the dam to break, and now we're seeing that, in part, maybe because other publishers didn't get out there and follow suit as quickly, Microsoft was left out on a limb in terms of having this higher price point, and has rescinded it. That Outer Worlds is back at its $70 kind of current market price point for modern console generation.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Xbox. Like, there's okay. So at a
I think
very,
you're not
very
alone in that statement. I think that's a very broad statement in terms of, yes.
so at a very, 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 very like super granular level, right? There are theories that I put together about like why the console, like you have the least amount of market share, you have the least reason why a consumer would pay more for your console. As prices have moved and we've had days of play and stuff, like you've had these consoles that are priced at the same price or more than a applicable like PlayStation SKU. You've got SKUs that are with $100, right, of the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's always kind of that range, at least at a minimum. Like, I think that range stretches further. It kind of depends on which type of consumer electronic device you're talking about, but for a console, you're definitely at a point where, like, if a person's looking at something at 550, they're definitely looking in a 450, 550 band, right, and considering what's a suitable substitute. So, like, that I haven't entirely gotten. Like again, of course, you piece together, well, it's a defensive move against, in case of tariffs, but then you see dynamics happening on the market. Like, I recently bought a Series X. They're hard to find, like, in a lot of cases. Like, they are not being stocked at certain retailers. Certain retailers have been told, like, we're not stocking them at an individual store unless like a customer walks in and asks to buy one. And then we'll order one.
It's not a great
So
sign for where they are in the market share. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've depending on when you go to the store, you will go to the store and hit points where you can buy one, but like the shipping time is like ridiculously long, or or where it's difficult to find a new one. You can find a ton of refurbs, and then you look at the refurb pricing, like you look at the refurb pricing at GameStop, and it'll be the refurb price will be in excess of the original $499 that the console SKU launched at the beginning of the generation. So there's just like it's literally the Ghostbusters line of like dogs and cats living together. It's just kind of crazy. And then this move, I don't feel like this move was entirely crazy. Um, I I've said, and I won't go through the whole thing, but we there is a predictable time frame in which video games have increased in cost by $10, right? It's every 8 to 12. It's been every 8 to 12 years until the time period 2015 to 2020. And then there was this stall. And what I've said is there's going to be a rubber band effect, right? Because prices were kept steady for so long, we're going to get to $80 games faster, way faster than it took us, even in the historical norm of 8 to 12 years, because these guys, I think, see the world as we need to make up lost time. So the $80 move didn't entirely surprise me that someone would make it. It was super weird to me that it was Xbox when it's their own service, like it's their own subscription service that kind of would compete head to head with $80 video games. So, and then we've talked before for a very long time, as going back as far as the Xbox One launch, about the whiplash and the fishtailing, about like this is the way things are going to be, and then backing off, right, of those things, instead of kind of sticking by your guns. And so that has an effect to it. So the whole thing is just kind of weird. I I I don't know how this is going to play out. I guess everybody's happy. It but it I you know I think it creates kind of a hairy eyeball effect of like a company that you keep an eye on because they were the first ones to try it. Now, yay, verily, admittedly, they didn't stick with it, so the dynamic is a little different than when like 2K did it, right? And then it was kind of a domino effect, right, of people who followed with it. So I don't know. I think it's just a. I think that's the full statement of the aspect, right? It's just weird. Right? The whole series of events has been weird and kind of is
I
a
mean,
little
the last few months of Xbox
right.
itself have
Yeah.
been, have felt all over the place in terms of strategy.
In terms of
But
pricing
no,
strategy, yeah.
yes, yeah, and I think, I mean, like, I see why Xbox got out there first and threw Outer Worlds to be the one to do it, because Outer Worlds could take the heat from it, so that when Call of Duty went at $80, people were already used to it. And
So that's the thing that's a little weird for me. I'm like, I think the opposite. I'm like, if you're going to do an $80 game, why would you do Outer Worlds 2? Call of Duty makes far more sense, right?
oh
If you're
yeah,
going to test
right.
the
I
water.
think Call of Duty totally makes sense, but in some ways, I mean it as like Outer Worlds getting out there to be kind of the sacrificial lamb to take the heat. But the announcements came. This pricing announcement in June came before 2K, NBA 2K announced and what their pricing structure was, and they didn't jump. Just like you said, 2K was the first one to kind of formalize this to the $70 mark. That they stayed at $70 for NBA 2K26 when it announced later, earlier this month.
So you think the thinking was Nintendo has done it. I have a nit wrinkle there too. But you think the thinking was Nintendo did it, let's do it, and we expect everyone to follow suit. And whenever it's it's kind of like those it's kind of like those movies in the scene where like the guy acts like with a lot of bravado about the bully, and instead of everybody sticking with him, everybody like takes a step back and leaves him standing by himself. So do you think basically like people vacated the space and Xbox was left standing alone and just decided to back off of it?
I mean, I'm projecting that, right? Like, I think it's hard to, given what we just said, like it's hard to know that there was where Xbox line, where Microsoft's line was with this. And I completely agree with you that it seemed so odd that they were the first ones to cross it because of their position in the marketplace. Um, yeah, as Nerds and Other Legend says, total miscalculation could have, potentially hurt Outer Worlds. Certainly, I think because we know Outer Worlds is launching multi-platform, that doing this, again, going back to your statements, that Call of Duty definitely had more cushion to absorb the ill will than an Obsidian, role playing game does. So yes, I think that it was very much they felt things were moving in this direction, and they were just getting out with it, and nobody else came out on that branch with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is the first one. This is the first one that was announced that's going console multi-platform day and date, right? It's the first Xbox title that will show up on both Xbox and PlayStation at the same time.
As a new title, yes. I mean, like later in August, we get the Gears of War, whatever their remaster that's coming out.
Reloaded, yeah.
Yeah, that'll hit on multi platforms. But yes, as a brand new title, I think this is the first one that will hit PlayStation 5 and Xbox at the same time.
Yeah, I was the nit that I said with Nintendo. It was also super surprising that, and again, I think we're still in the throes of people reacting to it. That there was this Nintendo leaned forward and leaned into the $80 game. Um, and I think a lot of people, including a lot of their competitors, did not listen to them and say, and hear the part where they said, "Yeah, but not every game is going to be $80, right? It's going to be selective pricing. We're going to do it." And I also don't think that people were prepared for like how careful and calculated they're being with it, because I think everybody thought that DK Bonanza was going to come out at $80, right? So it's selective pricing, and you thought that there was going to be kind of these. I refer to the PlayStation approach that they're doing with how they're sending their IPs to other platforms as 3 discrete S3 buckets, which is a little cloud engineer humor, which lots of people won't get. But but I think everybody expected Nintendo would have like new games that are Nintendo Switch 2 exclusives will be $80, like flat across the board, no question. And now we're seeing that they're not doing that. They're not just being selective; they're being super selective, and I think that has also caught people off guard. In for any corporations that had this notion that they were going to rush into the space, following behind the coattails of Nintendo, being the ones who raise prices. I don't really know what Nintendo title now will be the next $80 game, right? That we'll really see. Maybe some big collections like if they were going to do a Xenoblade, but is it the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition or whatever that came out that has like everything in it still like a $70?
So I think the Xenoblades, I mean, it's single games. Like they added
Okay,
some of the DLC in it, but they've never packaged multiple games
it's not an
together.
anthology.
No,
Okay.
I would think from Nintendo's perspective that they are probably saving that $80 mark for games that they know will be their evergreen games, where they know that Mario Kart and whatever the next 3D Zelda that comes out is probably in that space. I think it's also kind of an odd one because of the Nintendo's kind of add-on structure. Like Mario Party Jamboree, which came out 2 weeks ago, is a $60 game, but it's a $20 add-on if you want to get the Switch 2 pieces of it. Or
Which includes not just like the performance bumps and the resolution bumps, but actual additional content, right?
Yeah, it's almost DLC to some degree, just like the Kirby that is coming out. So when they package that together, suddenly the Mario Party Switch 2 native game is $80. So it's in true Nintendo case, it's an odd one because of how they've chunked up some of their pieces. I think, and this is also right at the. Did we know when Xbox did this? Did we know that GTA was gonna not get released this fall? Right.
Yeah, I think that had already been announced. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so that's the other kind of benchmark that people were looking for as well.
Yeah. Do you expect
Nerds? Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to call out Nerds' comment. Yeah, in terms of Nintendo, they definitely back when they were doing cartridges that you had, Ocarina, I'm pretty sure was $80. I agree with you. There were a number of cartridges on the SNES that were in that $80 mark, just because of the cost of producing cartridges. What were you going to say, Game?
Well, I want to pick up on Nerd's comment, and I mean, lots of people like mention these things. I want to say my remembrance of things like that is when there were SKUs like that, it was typically because they had something extra, like the cartridge had like an extra memory, like EEPROM on it, or there was something, I won't say unique, but there was it was like the equivalent of like a Sega 32X game, right? So there was a reason for it to cost differently. But yeah, cart memory was larger. Yeah.
I think that's the fact that you name dropped the 32X is, thank you. That doesn't happen very often in the podcast world, so that's great.
But the one question I was going to ask you before we move on to the last news story is, do you expect Nintendo Switch 2 Animal Crossing to be an $80 game?
That's a good question. It would not surprise me if it would be, just by the long tail of that game and the kind of popular resonance that it carries. I also, I can't see that game comes in the next 2 years though either. So, by that time, maybe the $80 conversation is less relevant because we're all there at this point.
Yep. Well, let's go ahead and go into the last news story. I did a very poor job of. We typically try to front load the bad industry news. This conflicted with my algorithm by which I always arrange the news stories alphabetically by the first word of the news story. So I was undone by this news story starting off with Supermassive Games.
Yeah, no problem. We'll hit these last two here. These are both just kind of layoff stories. Supermassive, the Until Dawn, the Quarry, the Dark Pictures series. They are laying off about 36 people, or not about. They are laying off 36 people, and they are delaying the directives. The directive 8020, which was a game announced over the summer. This is a story from game developer Chris Kerr, and game developer used to be Game of Sutra back in the day in terms of kind of its lineage of news sites. So definitely always more on the developer side. But yes, so they laid off 36 people, and also a game that directive was scheduled to come out this fall and is targeted for the first half of 26. Then the other layoff news story that I pick up, because really it is just it's my own kind of interest. Wayfinder developer Airship Syndicate. So this is another one from game developer from Diego Arula. Airship Syndicate is, they came out of the Darksiders series. They had partnered with Digital Eclipse for publishing Wayfinder. Wayfinder was going to be a free-to-play or games as service, and then it was repackaged to be a one purchase that had all the characters unlocked. They're now in their third round of layoffs that date back to the fall of 24. So this is the third round then of layoffs. So they continue to, which in some ways makes sense now that this is not not that it's a good sign for the studio in terms of what they're doing next, but also the fact that they went from what was going to be a games as service to having something as a single package, and that single package released and is for sale. It doesn't surprise me that we also see some layoffs as that studio shrinks back down in the kind of pre-production stages of whatever comes next, if it even exists long enough to have those.
Yeah, and one comment from nerds back on the topic of Animal Crossing Nintendo Switch 2 being $80 feels that it is definitely going to be $80. Okay, moving on to segment 3, rounding out our remaining gamer experiences from the past week. What else we've been playing besides the headlining titles that we mentioned at the beginning of the show, and the only one who has anything in the quiver is DBQ.
Yeah,
I've been playing nothing but college football.
Well, I can appreciate that as someone who played college football for the better part of a year and is still playing an online Madden franchise. Like, yes, I can completely, and it does fill that gap of games as a service when you are playing on such a regular cadence. So, two other games that came out this week are that I picked up, or one is on Game Pass and the other I picked up. It's out of early access. So this first game is Brutal John 2. So Brutal John 2, there was not a Brutal John 1. Brutal John 2 is, it is a boomer shooter, very much in the Duke Nukem kind of. To me, it has kind of the, I don't know, the ambiance of a Duke Nukem, but also a Serious Sam. I definitely am getting a lot of kind of Serious Sam vibes from it. Neither, it is not taking itself seriously. One of its two characters, which means one of the reasons it was previously called Brutal John. It's been in development since 2020. And one of the reasons that it's called Brutal John 2 is that you can play as two different characters. And one of those characters, you find out, you start the game off with him, but then you kind of get how it happens in the first kind of level of the actual game. And it is a muscular dog that has, a corgi that has been transformed into the Duke Nukem-esque. Yeah, and here, if you're watching on the screen or if you look it up in clips, it's very much kind of a, early 2000s kind of PlayStation 2 graphic style in terms of its kind of pixelated 3D. But it is a fast-moving boomer shooter, lots of side strafing, but it's enjoyable. It's in early access. It is about 70% of the way complete. And as a whole, looking at Steam reviews, I haven't finished it, but Steam reviews clock it at about 3 to 4 hours, depending on how fast you're running through it. I think historically, the way I play boomer shooters is a lot more cautiously than they're meant to be played. I don't usually run and gun, or I have to work against my falling back and circle strafing around things default. But yes, so this is it's just it's a boomer shooter. But I played probably an hour with a smile on my face the entire time because it's just goofy fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's got the Duke Nukem-esque kind of quirks of, quips that the characters are playing. The story is asinine in terms of these, reptilioids that are crypto mining and have taken over the world. It is not meant to be serious, and it is designed that way. The studio is let me look up this. I had the studio here. Old School Laws is the studio name, and they are a small team. They started off as 3 people. Back when looking at some news articles, even a few years ago, they were still only 3 people. They spooled up a little bit to do this, but they are former 3D Realms employees. So in terms of the lineage to it, so it definitely kind of there's a reason that it plays out like a Duke Nukem, because it has some 3D Realms lineage to it. But yeah, so I'll be curious to see what the full product looks like. But for $10 for a couple hours, it's a enjoyable boomer shooter, and there's plenty of them out there on Steam in that kind of retro boomer shooter aspect. One of the reasons that I have a number of them in my wish list on Steam, but oftentimes like Mad Jack, Mullet Mad Jack, Turbo Kill, some of the other ones that most recently that have been really done well in terms of their mechanics also are just kind of sweaty to some degree in terms of the challenges there, where this is, because of the fact that it's more humor and doesn't take itself nearly as seriously as some of the other ones. That's what really stuck out to me is I enjoy a boomer shooter, just like Nerds and Other Legends is saying. That there's a fun. He talks about High on Life being the opening of it is very much in a boomer shooter aspect, and that's another game that it doesn't take itself very seriously at all, regardless of what you think of Justin Roiland's humor and himself as a creator. But that is a game that does not take itself too seriously, and that's in a same reason Serious Sam always worked for me, is that you can't have somebody running around with bombs on their hands and take it too seriously. So the other game I picked up is a little more serious. This is a Wheel World. This is a bike racing game. The graphics are kind of very much cel shaded. It's published by Annapurna. It is developed by Messhoff Games. So they did Nidhogg and Nidhogg 2.
So visual style wise, it immediately gives me Ali Ali World vibes.
Yeah, Ali Ali World, Dungeons of Hinterberg from last summer as well. You know, the graphic style very much feels in that kind of Ali Ali World. It's got a great soundtrack. It's very chill. Like one of the reasons, it's on Game Pass, so that's where I picked it up and played it. It's kind of all over the map in terms of some of its reviews. Like Game Informer gave it a 5, but Eurogamer talked about it being kind of this transcendent experience, right? So in some ways, the actual game of it, the racing of it, I've had to redo races multiple times just because it can feel kind of touchy. Like if you're watching any clips, yeah, the Jusant, as Nerds talks about, Jusant is that, it was from Don't Nod, a climbing game. There's another climbing game coming out this fall, Carrion, which also has a similar visual style. But it's mainly racing, and then you are kind of out in almost a bike Breath of the Wild, where you are moving around the world, finding, your bike is a mystical bike, that you have a ghost with you, that the bike transfers, almost like a spiritfarer. It brings people from the land of the living to the land of the dead, but your bike has been rotted over time, or it has, so you are challenging a number of different races and circuits and different bike groups to unlock different bike parts to continue to power up your bike. And your ghost spirit gives you a boost, and it's not the most technically complex, as you could see in the video here as you're clipping into a wall. So in some ways it is, it's not an equivalent of Descenders or Lonely Mountain Downhill, where you're, very much a kind of physics-based aspect. It's definitely, it slows down the pace. Like the races are nice because it gives you a little bit of something to focus on, and then when you're out in the open world, it is very peaceful and relaxed, and there's not even really a whole lot of physics in the world. Like I'm riding over what look to be rocks when I'm playing, and there's, you're not, the landscape is very flat. It is not, it's not necessarily built up in such a way that navigating and traversing the world is a physics challenge. It is much more of kind of a narrative experience, which makes sense because it's published by Annapurna Games, which is often more narrative focused than it is kind of gameplay focused.
So I will say, when you talk about reviews being all over the map, just to point out, the Steam user reviews are at 91%, very good. So the vast majority, low number of reviews, it only has about 204 reviews, but at least of the people who have purchased the game and played it, they seem to have hold in pretty high regard.
Yeah, and it's right now it's a early discount, like a 10% discount, but at full price it's $19.99.
All right, DBQ. Anything else before we talk about significant releases for this week? Okay, so only one game really crossed my judgment threshold as being a significant title for this week. Tales of the Shire, which most people would have become aware of, I think, from the Wholesome Game Direct this past summer. It is a cozy game, so to speak. It is out July 29th, so this Tuesday, and coming to both PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and the Switch. It seems like Nintendo Switch would be kind of the perfect place to play this game. It is a Hobbit life sim set in the Middle Earth universe of J.R.R. Tolkien, coming later this year to the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and X and S, and PC, as I mentioned. So my guess on this, I haven't dug into this super deeply, is that this is essentially a life sim, and will be analogous to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, although not as action and combat oriented.
I was gonna say, it's very much in kind of a Hobbit Stardew Valley, of farming and home building, and it's in this cozy game aspect. I think it was shown during the cozy games direct or whatever, a showcase back in June. So one of the other games that's coming out on the same day, on the 29th, is, as we were talking about, Outer Worlds 2, that Obsidian's Grounded 2 is coming out on the 29th as well. So Grounded, again, another kind of survival game, a little more action-oriented. Grounded 1, Hobbit Harvest Moon, there you go, nerds. That's a great kind of context there. Or Rune Factory, depending on which IP branch you want to go off of. But yes, so Grounded 2 is coming out on the 29th as well, which was announced back in June at the Xbox Showcase, and is coming faster than most people expected.
And that is also the title that is coming day and date to multiple platforms, right? No, actually, it's actually just looks like it's just going to Windows and Xbox Series X and S.
Xbox, yeah. Yep. I mean, it is one that eventually went to Nintendo and PlayStation, so it would not surprise me if we see it. Looking at the Steam page, it's not showing early access. It looks like it's a full launch, but they did an early access last time, so I'll be curious to see if this is. But I would assume that it's going to come to multi-platforms just because the original did as well.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is there's no early access because last time around it was a completely new thing. I would think that a lot of this they've been incubating kind of within the game itself. Is this a paid game or is it free to play?
I believe it's paid. The first one was paid. I would assume that it's probably not a full price. I think it was $40. The original one was. So, but it's a paid product.
Yeah, I could see it being $39.99. No pricing listed on the Steam page. So, okay. Well, DBQ, if there's nothing else. Okay, next week, everyone, Towmaster99 will be in the seat optimally if he is able to make it, and we'll be taking over host duties while myself and DBQ fly co-pilot. For everyone who came through the live chat tonight, we appreciate you, Nate, Nerds of Legends, Soil Tech, and I hope I didn't miss anyone who came through. Like I said, we do appreciate you. For anyone who happens to watch the archive version of this live show as a video on demand on the YouTube channel at E2KG Network. We appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content or go live again. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like. Come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, here with my stalwart partner in crime, Mr. DBQ Hams. Also, I have kicked off a new solo cast called The Logic Files. I am trying to do that on Tuesdays and Fridays. Don't hold me to it. I have not entirely vetted that schedule, but likely if I am able to do it Tuesday, it'll be at 9:30 p.m. ish Eastern, going over topics in the gaming industry. For Tuesday night, I will be doing a deeper breakdown of some of my thoughts of the senior director of a multi-platform strategy job posting over on the SIE career site. So I've had some time to think about that a little bit more and did a pretty lengthy write-up on it on Twitter. So I'll be talking about that a little bit more in the solo cast. So if you do want to swing through and catch that, you can. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.